Welcome, welcome to Revelations from the courtroom of heaven. Aaron here with you. So this episode, working through a court case, the details, that's where we're at. So we're really getting busy. We're really getting things in gear. We're using the court of proposals to draft things, to get with God, to get the full details we need. And then when we're taking this, at this point, we're taking everything into the courts of justice. And now the courts of justice is when you start getting kind of your identity, kind of your footprints in the heavenly places, and you're an official now. You're working to be that official. You're being trained, though, in this period. You're being trained, and you are handling official business. Handling official business. So everything that is in heaven, the books, the records, the things of God, all these things are of such a great stature that they are deemed eternal, okay? They're official. They're eternal. They will remain forever. The enemy, in his courts and what he does, he has an official nature with the things he does, meaning that if he entraps you, he has rights to you. And those are legally binding documents he has when he has a case against you. And for whatever reason that case is true for your life and it lands on you and you're walking out his deal, it's official. But within the courts of heaven, we will undo the records of hell and undo the enemy's official cases, okay? Because the point is we want to reconcile everything to the kingdom of heaven, undo everything the enemy tried to do. So working through a court case. So I kind of gave examples and walked through, but really we really need to kind of get familiar with some of the details, some of the things that you may need to deal with, and how things work, how the spirit realm works, and how to deal with stuff. That's where we're at right now. So sometimes, okay, so there's an issue in your life, you're dealing with it, it's hitting you. So where's that coming from? Well, it could be coming from outside, a demon just, hatching stuff against you, using people, projecting stuff on you, okay? It could happen on the inside. You have this spirit of whatever, of gluttony or whatever, and you just can't get this thing out, right? You have some addiction you're dealing with. Well, and also it could be an outside and an inside. So we need to know, where is this thing coming from that we're dealing with? And so the enemy, he comes at us at all kinds of different ways. And what he's doing, he's going forth with the assignments that he has, okay? So we're going to start crafting a case. And we are going to go back into the court of proposals and really kind of sit in to the counsel of God, the counsel of the Holy Spirit. But I'm going to be walking you through an example, okay? And this example, you may never deal with something exactly like that, but I think you will, okay? And we'll get to it. But don't over-personalize this example, but just learn kind of what I'm trying to teach here. So in the level of justice we're currently at, right, and what we can execute and what God will give us to do within the courts, we're not going to be completely tearing down every bit of darkness that exists, in a given situation, but we are going to target something specific and work to put an end to it. We want it off the books. We want it thrown out. We want to take it out of the hands of the enemy and put something good in its place that's fully in the hands of God. And so a point I need to make here is, God, while you're praying, your prayer life could be so potent, just let God do what he wants to do. I don't want to put any restrictions on what you can believe God for, what he will use you to do in your own prayer life. But the courtroom, it's another weapon we have. And the revelation, it directs us to, all right, in this court you can deal with this, but you need to kind of build yourself up in righteousness, in your walk with God, in your level of glory, to be able to deal with this bigger thing here, okay? But maybe this bigger thing up here, God will accomplish just in your prayer closet with him, right? So we want to not put any, restrictions on God, but we also want to understand that his kingdom is a kingdom of order, and he brings us precept upon precept. And when we increase in the precepts, we're increasing with the amount of heaven we have access to and the amount of darkness that we can deal with. That's just how it works. But can God go against that and pour a grace out on you and give you something just because he feels like it? Yes. But like the way that God's given me this revelation, he's wanting to build a church, and he's wanting to make officials within his courts to be able to accomplish all kind of different things so he can trust us with everything that life is going to throw at us. And when we do things in the proper protocol and we progress, there's nothing in there that's filler. It's all good. It's all redeemed. It's all potent, okay? All right, so I was talking about with the level of justice we're dealing with now, going before the courts of justice, we're going to be potent, we're going to be strong, but we're going to be smart with what we have, okay? So, seek God with what issue he wants to deal with. And so I'm throwing something on you. We're going to be proactive here, okay? You may consider a health or financial issue, spiritual or material. So our spiritual health is just as important or even more important than our physical health, right? A financial issue in the spirit does not have a dollar sign attached to it. Like we need our dollars freed and all that stuff, but a financial issue may be, the amount of your gift that's functioning and flowing, see? So what is God showing you to deal with? What issue is he showing, okay? So you want to define your issue. Okay, now this is going to get important. So we talked about defining a target previously. So you're going to want to have a target issue, define your issue, and present it to God and talk it out, okay? Now, this targeted issue, the things within that issue may be different than you think. And I'm going to have an example showing this, okay? So once we have targeted the issue, we then want to target the specific forms of darkness behind that issue. So the original issue we are addressing may have kind of a different spirit than you would think, okay? Who's going to reveal that? The Holy Spirit. So let's have an example. Okay, so let's say I have a big issue of addiction in my life. It's in all parts of my life. It's a plague, and I just want it to end, okay? And I'm wanting to deal with it, all right? So God will say, okay, you brought it to him in the court of proposals, and you're lingering there, and you feel like God's going to want to work with you here to move it. Now, sometimes he might not, okay? But in this issue, he is wanting to deal with this thing right now. Okay, so what do? We receive counsel. So we want to know what is behind this stronghold of addiction. What's the makeup of it? What darkness is in charge of what? Now, you're not going to need to get every nitty-gritty detail possible and just, you don't need to go on an endless hunt here, but just listen. Listen to what God's going to show you. So let's say that, I'm wanting to deal with this addiction. And so God shows me that yes, you do have a stronghold of addiction and I want to deal with it. It's affecting all areas of your life. I see that. So this is a big issue, right? With a whole lot of darkness involved. Addictions usually are, okay? It has overcome you. That's why you're addicted to it. And when you're overcome, there's all kind of systems that need to be addressed. And so the example I'm showing you here, I think it's very useful because it's very real. It's kind of how things work. But let God show you. Right, okay, so at the moment that you're bringing this thing, God's looking at everything. He's looking at where your heart is. He's looking at where he wants to take you, and he's looking at how he can get you free in the best kind of way to get you free without overwhelming you, okay? And that's a true thing. It's like, because our hearts, minds, and souls have been so conditioned, carrying a certain darkness or whatever, a sin nature, an addiction, whatever, sometimes we need to be kind of weaned or walked out of it, okay? Because you were so used to it, you poured your whole self. It became who you were. So in the middle of God bringing you freedom, you need to kind of learn back who you really are, When we're freed from addiction, we're freed from also a false identity, okay, that poured itself into that thing. Okay, so God sees it all. He sees what the enemy's doing from A to Z, okay? So God's going to let you know how to deal with it. So let's say that, so he's dealing with addiction, right? But he wants to address things differently than you may have thought. And here it is. So God's seeing how the enemy's working, how kingdoms work with each other, in the demonic kingdom, how systems and strongholds work together, okay? So God's saying that, okay, I see the addiction going on, but really I want to deal with this one thing first, because that spirit of addiction is using another spirit to kind of do its work for it. And so in this instance, he's saying that there's a spirit of lethargy that's working with a spirit of addiction. And he's saying the spirit of lethargy is keeping you in cycles of addiction. It's removing your strength. It's removing your drive. It's putting you to sleep. When the Holy Spirit sets you on fire, this thing comes to try to put out the fire and put it out. So when you are so, bent on being, all right, God, I'm done with this thing. I'm relying on your strength. I'm done with this thing. Well, then, so that's going against the spirit of addiction, right? That part of your will, you're setting your will against that spirit of addiction. Well, the spirit of lethargy comes in and puts it out. So in God's wisdom, he's saying, no, we need to deal with lethargy, okay? Because your addiction, that spirit of addiction is just kind of sitting back and letting lethargy do all the work, okay? So the spirit of addiction could likely be the bigger demon or stronghold spirit, okay? But the system of lethargy is doing all the work for him or it, okay? And it's actually that spirit of lethargy in this certain situation is defending and protecting that addiction. Because you can go with that addiction all the time, but unless you get that lethargy out, the addiction's not going to be thwarted properly. And we are coming to a time to where God can just rip whatever he wants to out too, okay? I keep kind of prefacing that because I never want us to get in a mindset that we're limiting what God can do. At the same time, I'm very aware with the order of his kingdom and the precepts that he's given me to kind of share with you guys of how to grow as a priest in his kingdom, to maybe become a judge in his kingdom, to maybe become a king in his kingdom. So as we grow in our ability to grow with God, take his wisdom in, we're growing ourselves, right? We're being built up to be that king in his kingdom, to be that priest, to be that judge, okay? So in this situation, in this court case, you came to God with addiction, and he's saying, we're not going to deal with the addiction, the spirit of addiction. We're going to deal with the spirit of lethargy. Okay. All right. So there's your target now. Your target is not the spirit of addiction. Your target right now is the spirit of lethargy. And do you remember, like I was talking about, how you bring a matter to God, and he might cut that matter up into different cases. This is exactly what we're seeing here. Different cases. First, deal with this, deal with this, deal with this, deal with this. So we'll use something like a separation order. And that's a very legally binding thing. That's a tool that we use in the kingdom of heaven, in the courts of heaven. So, and we'll talk about this more, but there's things I mentioned like restraining orders, separation orders, protection sequences. Being aware of these things, you start to become aware of, okay, when I'm drafting my proposal, when I'm coming up with this case against the enemy, I know I can use this thing. And I know I can use this thing, okay? And we're not over digging, but we're allowing the Holy Spirit just to reveal how stuff works, okay? So that example I gave you, it has given us a clear target, and we want to go for the spirit of lethargy, okay? And a lot of times we'll put a charge against the spirit of lethargy in all kind of its kingdom, of all kind in all parts of your kingdom. Okay, so that has that thing grouped up really good, okay? So we're going to move forward in crafting our case against this spirit. And in the next episode, we're going to uncover just a little more of what we need to do when we're coming up with our court case. And we'll pick right up in next episode.